Alrighty, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's episode of Roundabout Sports. It is episode 181, presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. Also presented by Harsh Construction LLC, with over 50 years combined experience in landscaping, renovation, and construction. Harsh Construction LLC. Be sure to call for a free quote today at 618-363-9818. Also, be sure to thank our other sponsor, that being Crispy Clean Lawn Care, Brush and Junk Removal. For them, you dial 618-593-2997. Especially with the summer kick in full swing and a lot of storms coming in, be sure to call Crispy Clean for all of your lawn care needs. All right, folks, thank you so much. It is a hot Wednesday, June 24th, 2026. I am the Maestro, Jeremy Karp, alongside my co-host and dear friend, Adam Frecks. Adam, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, but it's not just us this week. Of course, we have our special guest, and that being the independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Famer himself, the one and only Luke Roberts, a long-time veteran of professional wrestling in all different forms. Luke, my friend, I owe so much to you, so it's so great to have you aboard. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing awesome. And just to let you know, for those, and I can speak from personal experience, you hear about those personal testimonials. If you need to get anything taken care of in your lawn, anything on your property, with the craziness that is the summer here in St. Louis, Crispy Clean definitely is the company you need to call for all your brush removal. You name it, they're there. They're quick. They're very economical, and they're always on time. Crispy Clean for all of your brush and junk removal. And again, gentlemen, it's an honor and a privilege to be here. Tonight, we're talking Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame class of 2026. And I'm going to tell you right now, guys, from top to bottom, over 200 years of wrestling experience that we have going into this year's Hall of Fame. And from top to bottom, probably one of the best classes I've ever seen. And I've been keeping tabs on the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame since back in 2018 when they got started. And again, another great class of Hall of Famers going in this year.
I was going to say, so where does your installment or your engagement with the Hall of Fame begin, Luke?
Well, to give you an idea, I've always kind of kept in the loop with the Hall of Fame back from its inception, back when Herb Simmons and Tony Costa were the initial inductees back in 2018. But 2024 was really my first connection on a regular basis with the Hall of Fame. It was interesting, and I'm going to go ahead and share the story here real quick. I was asked about a week out. They were inducting Spike Huber into the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. I mean, you knew him from Wrestling at the Chase, a lot of different other local promotions as well throughout the greater bi-state, or some might consider the tri-state area, if you consider Indiana to be a third state. And it was ironic. It was a very busy day that day because earlier in the morning, I had to go visit a friend of mine, a longtime friend, both of yours and mine, Jeremy, the good doctor himself, Drew Abenhouse from SICW. And I told the Hall of Fame I would be there for the induction ceremony. But I had found out about a week to 10 days prior that Drew's mother had unfortunately passed away. And one of the things I learned in the wrestling business, you only have a handful of friends you can count on one hand as far as true friends in the wrestling industry. And I managed to be there, spend some time with Drew and his family, hung out with some friends, mutual friends of ours. And it was ironic. I told the Hall of Fame exactly when I was going and when I was leaving and when I would approximately be there. And they were just finishing up the induction right before mine, right as I was walking into the building. It's like, our next inductor is Luke Roberts. And I'm literally walking in the front door, getting to the venue. And I mean, again, it was just the opportunity to see all the inductees in 24. And then, how do I say it? I still owe a certain somebody here on this show for the surprise of 2025 being inducted and then in turn putting on the board of directors. But like I said, since that point in time, the Hall of Fame really has taken so much more change, so much of a different look since the class of 2025. A lot of wrestlers from a lot of different promotions here in the St. Louis region, and now 2026 is no exception. There's wrestlers from several different promotions that are going to be going in, and I'm going to tell you, in the last 2 years, the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame really has made a lot of huge changes, a lot of huge statements to be one of the most recognized Hall of Fames, not just in the St. Louis area in the Midwest, but around the country and around the world. As a matter of fact, today I just received my correspondence from a 5th country outside of the United States. I received correspondences and communications with wrestlers from Canada, wrestlers from China, wrestlers from the UK, wrestlers from Italy, wrestlers from UK, China, Italy, Canada. We got the United States as well, Australia. Our good friend, the artist formerly known as Lockie, shout out. And again, I have to apologize to him. I'm sorry a lot of people have been talking trash, but again, remember, the U.S. did defeat Australia in World Cup qualifier action. Hopefully the two teams will get a chance to face off in the knockout round. But again, got to show the love to my buddy over in the UK. But again, this year, the Hall of Fame class, from top to bottom, a lot of new things, a lot of great things happening. And of course, our broadcast colleague here, the Maestro Jeremy Karp, back by popular demand, the MC of the 2026 Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. Right then and there, I mean, again, from top to bottom, a great experience for the pro wrestling fan here in St. Louis on Sunday afternoon, July the 19th.
You took the words right out of my mouth. So here's my first thing I want to say before the three of us kind of go down and look at all the inductees that we have for this year. So the thing I want to bring up is, we talk about the St. Louis wrestling area, the plethora of promotions that we have. Well, we also have multiple halls of fame. What separates and differentiates the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame from something, say, is the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, and what gives it its unique taste?
Well, Jeremy, that's a very good question. There are other Hall of Fames. I mean, if you want to sit down and look at it, there is the RCW Hall of Fame. There's the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. There's, of course, the one that I represent, the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. A lot of the Hall of Fames are primarily based on a promotional basis. And some of them are based on wrestlers who came in during the time period of wrestling at the Chase. The idea of when you're looking at the Hall of Fame, that was, I don't want to say it was a different time era, but when you look at the days of a Sam Muchnick or a Larry Matisick, that was, in the eyes of many, to be a different style of wrestling, I guess would be the best way to put it. And when you look at the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, and you brought it up too, Jeremy, there are 13, if my memory serves me correctly, 13 different promotions in the St. Louis area right now.
Approximately 13, yes.
Yeah. And when you look at it, there are so many different styles of wrestling. If you want to see a mat-based style, you want to see a wrestling style like back in the day, like a wrestling at the Chase, and you're going to look at a promotion like an SICW, an MMWA, a Dynamo Pro Wrestling, a WLW. If you're going to look for more of a aerial offense style, you're going to look at a lot to the tunes of like a St. Louis Anarchy or even to at times a CHWA. If you want kind of that happy middle ground, you're going to see promotions like Glory Pro. You're going to see promotions like Midwest Throwdown Wrestling. You're going to see promotions like New Genesis Wrestling. You're going to see promotions like Pro Wrestling Epic. I mean, there are so many different styles of wrestling, and it goes back to what Ric Flair and others have said. If you've made it in St. Louis, if you can survive in the St. Louis area, that means you've done something in the wrestling industry. And like I said, when you look at the Independent Hall of Fame, a lot of the things that stand out, number one is the fact that these are the individuals. I mean, we look from the very beginning. There are a lot of Hall of Fame, like, oh, well, they were in the WWE for 22 years, or they were in AEW since their inception, or they wrestled on 6 Triple Manias, or they wrestled at Wrestle Kingdom. A lot of the wrestlers that have gone into the Hall of Fame, or the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, are wrestlers who have gotten their start here. I can go back to wrestlers like, and this is going to sound strange, but you look back and look at class of 2025. You have wrestlers like the Human Wrecking Ball, Pete Madden. You have wrestlers like Mischief. You go a little bit farther back, you go into wrestlers like the likes of Ed Smith, like Johnny Jett, among others. You look at the likes of Ron Powers, wrestlers who went on to the very top and then came back to the St. Louis area. And that's what makes our Hall of Fame different, is the idea of where you're looking at I dare say the road warriors, the ones that will go out there, wrestle in a town, do the nightly show, get in a car, drive to wherever they got to go, do another event, get in the car, do another show. And it's not uncommon for them to do 3 or 4 nights a week at the minimum, competing, getting inside the squared circle. And this year, the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame has a lot of new twists that a lot of the other Hall of Fames don't have. We were talking about it before we went on the air. This year, we're going to have the first ever, and I mean, there's countless different promotions, but we are actually going to have the first ever Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame pre-show. You heard me right. Approximately 90 minutes before we go live, we're actually going to have a in-depth look, much like we are tonight, from the world of professional wrestling here in St. Louis. And it's going to be hosted. One gentleman is a gentleman by the name of John Blaine, who a lot of the viewers of Roundabout Sports may not know. He is one of the hosts of Around the Ropes radio show out in New York City. The other one is a man who is no stranger to all 3 of us. I know that our broadcast colleague here, Adam Frecks, knows him very well. The one, the only, the Night Owl, Renee Martinez, is going to be tuning in. And one of the cool things is great with this particular pre-show and post-show is the fact that it's going to be carried on multiple different networks. I know right now, as it stands, Around the Ropes is going to carry it. Attitude of Aggression is going to carry it. The Nerdic Pro podcast. The following conversation is scheduled for one fall. I know for a fact with the MC being here, I would very strongly expect that you could catch all these great pieces of information on Interstate 70 Sports Media.
Yeah, that's what do you think, Adam? You think we should carry it?
Absolutely.
It could be Adam, and Adam, because if you think about it, Jeremy, you're going to be taking care of induction stuff and making sure that things go according to plan. Yeah. I'm going to be all over the place. It's very much possible that Adam Frecks, that's what we need to do. We're going to have special guests, and it very well may be that we have Adam Frecks join us in on the pregame or the postgame show.
For that.
Hey, there we go. I'm in, brother.
And another one to look at it too, and we've been working on it well this year, is the idea that we are actually going to start having some memorabilia on display from different wrestlers who have traveled the world, who have traveled the professional wrestling scene. And I mean, there's been a lot of wrestlers. I mean, I can go back and look at it. Jeremy Lightfoot, Douglas O'Shea, Scar, Webmaster Stevie K, Doc Lombardi, Black Glove Butch Fletcher, Marcus Mansfield, Mean Mark Stone, Viper. I could go on and on and on with the different wrestlers. The Beast is going to have some things on display. The late Angel of Light, Izzy Blackwell, will have a handful of things on display. From top to bottom, it's going to be an opportunity for the pro wrestling fan to experience independent wrestling from a little bit of a different perspective. You always see the wrestlers get inside the ring and compete and throw fists and drop kicks and headlocks and all that kind of stuff. But what happens when you get the opportunity to see these people live, when they don't have to compete? And they can get, as they say, the new buzzword is they get the chance to get their flowers for what they've accomplished in the industry. That's what makes us so unique. And again, for a $30 advance ticket, you get a meal, You get the pre-show and the post-show. You get the opportunity to look at all of the artifacts. You get the ceremony itself. And you get to listen to Jeremy Karp for 2.5 hours. So right then and there is a bonus plus right there.
I'll take
but again, for $30, you can't go wrong with it. And again, the individuals we're going to talk about here in just a few moments are all individuals who've made a large impact, not just in my career, not just in the careers of the members of the board of directors, but in the careers of countless wrestlers and wrestling fans across the greater bi-state area, and in many of them across the globe.
Adam,
I got a question actually for both
for
of you. So St. Louis is an absolute hotbed when it comes to wrestling, and it's not normal. I know maybe you guys are around it all the time. It's not normal with, especially to have 13 promotions. How is that cultivated? Because we don't have that here in Kansas City.
Well, Adam, you bring up a really good point. Going into the idea of having so many different promotions, I remember back in the early to mid 90s, there were really only 2 promotions, 3 technically, from about the end of the Wrestling at the Chase era in the early 80s to about 95, 96. And that was primarily MMWA, SICW, and RCW, which is Rampage Championship Wrestling. And what happened and what was strange about it was in the mid to late 1990s, people got an idea, much like the Monday Night Wars, that they were going to change things up. They didn't like how things were formulated. They thought they could be bigger and better. So they went off and they did their own thing. And there were a lot of great promotions that came out of that. You've got promotions like Midwest Powerhouse Wrestling. You've got promotions that I called home, that being the MVWA, the Mississippi Valley Wrestling Alliance. You had promotions like CCW, Central Championship Wrestling, and you had MRW, which later becomes GCW, which later becomes Dynamo Pro. And when you look at it, a lot of people back then were of the idea that they didn't like it, so they changed the scenario. And nowadays, there's a lot of promotions that have ties to those early promotions. I mean, if you sit back and look at it, you look at a Glory Pro, you look at a WrestleMax, there's a good tie with those promotions as it relates to Dynamo Pro and GCW. When you look at promotions like PWE really has its connections actually in a couple promotions, that being the MMWA and I would say to a certain degree Mid-America Extreme Pro Wrestling. When you look at St. Louis Anarchy, when they first started, they were a backyard company. And as time goes on, they start kind of getting, as they become LWA, and then they become NWL St. Louis, and then they become St. Louis Anarchy again. They kind of filtered into a variety of different wrestling promotions. When you look at professional wrestling in St. Louis, it doesn't matter whether you're talking the 1950s and 60s or you're talking 2026. As they say on the board, the words on the marquee are professional wrestling. And there's a lot of them. Another one I have to give a shout out to this past weekend, I was at New Genesis Wrestling. And I got to tell you, I saw 2 phenomenal matches, 2 matches that very well could be top 5 for the year, that being Ricky Cruz taking on Abad and the Shooter Jerry Morgan taking on Mustafa Ali. I would also be remiss if you don't talk about CHWA, and they had a couple of great matchups. The big one I would say would probably be the unsanctioned match between Angelo Grimsley and Captain Bad Attitude James Brady. And that's the one thing, is everybody has their own different style. Everybody has their own little niche. And again, when you go to other places like Kansas City's been consistently, if you go back, you look at the Central States territory, and nowadays you've really only got about 2 or 3 promotions in the greater Kansas City area. And I mean, again, it's one of those where to me, it's more of the different styles, the different philosophies. And Jeremy, I want to throw this over to you for your thoughts. How does pro wrestling sustain so many promotions here in our area? What do you think?
In a weird way, I think it is the opportunity to have a whole lot of options. Say somebody goes to a wrestling show that they don't like by chance. Well, the opportunity to see a different promotion is like, hey, now we can go see how they do. And if they like it, great. If not, you have such a plethora of options. Yes, it's a risk reward scenario to where, yes, you don't want to saturate the market, but at the same time, how many times have we seen multiple quality shows from multiple promotions on the same weekend? And then it's just a matter of which fans are going to which show. Like, what are you going to choose?
Yeah, and Jeremy, you bring up a good point. It was about a month and a half, about 6 weeks ago. There were 4 different promotions in the greater St. Louis area that were all putting on events. And I think all of them were within 90 minutes of each other. I think one was in Troy, one was in Edwardsville. I want to say one was in Chester, I want to say. And then there was one in downtown St. Louis. 4 well, they can't sustain that. You look at the simple business economics of things. Not only is it a different style of wrestling, but what professional wrestling brand is closest to you? And the cool thing was all 4 promotions were pretty close to sellout crowds.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing, and I agree with Jeremy completely. If there's a particular style of wrestling you like, or there's a particular handful of wrestlers that you want to follow, they're going to be on that product. And again, it's one of those where you see too, as time goes on, I mean, for a number of years, Jeremy Karp and I sat alongside each other in the commentary booth. And since that point in time, we've kind of moved into different facets of the professional wrestling industry. And I mean, again, it's one of those, as time goes on, you see what other things have. And I mean, when you look at the track record of St. Louis and all the wrestlers who survived, I guess you would say, the independent scene of St. Louis, I mean, just to rattle a few: Warhorse, Reign Victoria, Savannah Stone, current WOW Tag Team Champion Tootie Lynn. You look at wrestlers like Warhorse. You look at wrestlers like Gary J, the Stiff Robo Ginger. There are countless others. Jake Durden, High Level Enterprise, who develop their skills here, and then they go other places and they may move to that next step. Also, a shout out to our all of our friends, the one, the only CJ Shine, just getting back from a tour of the UK. And again, that's one of those where I think the biggest thing is with so many different styles. By the time you leave St. Louis, if you don't know the ins and outs of pro wrestling, then that's 100% on you, because the availability is there to learn pretty much any style you want to learn here in that area. And it's a benefit not only to wrestling, but to the fans as well.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of learning, I think it's time for all the amazing fans tuning in to Roundabout Sports this evening to learn about the inductees that we have in the class of 2026 at the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, because there are quite a few, some posthumous inductees and some who will be able to be with us to celebrate this amazing occasion. We're going to start it off. And Luke, once again, I mean, I'm going to name one off to you, and you kind of just give us kind of your thoughts, your highlights. We're going to start off with a man who has dabbled both in pro wrestling and in Hollywood, member of the Screen Actors Guild himself, Mr. Steve Montana.
Steve Montana is one of those guys, to quote the commentator himself, Joey Styles. He's got arms like legs and legs like people. It's one of those. Steve Montana has had a 30-plus year career, but it's 34 years in the wrestling industry. His resume reads a who's who when it comes to championship belts and wrestlers he's wrestled with. I had an opportunity when I was going back and doing the research on Steve Montana. Here is just 3 of the wrestlers he's wrestled over the course of his career. And when you hear these 3, you're not going to believe that somebody could have all 3 of these on their pedigree and their legacy. But Steve Montana, accomplished actor, voiceover, in-person, stuntman, you name it. During his career, wrestled Kevin Thorne, Gentleman Chris Adams, and the legendary Ox Baker. When you talk about professional wrestling, Steve Montana can wrestle any style. You want to wrestle a power game, he can wrestle a power game. One thing a lot of people that took him for granted for is he's a very accomplished mat wrestler. And if you want him to throw a drop kick, you want him to come off the ropes, he can do that too. Steve Montana is the complete package. And he is a very humble man. He's one of those where if Steve Montana's got something to say, Steve tends to do it in the ring. But if you hear Steve Montana talk, he's a very articulate man, a very soft-spoken man. But when it's time to talk, like it's going to be on July 19th, Steve is definitely somebody that you want to sit down and listen to because the knowledge, the story, and the history that he has in pro wrestling guaranteed him, at least in my eyes, his spot in the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame this year.
Awesome. Next up, we got a member of the RCW Hall of Fame, and he has an over 30-year career in wrestling as well. Black Glove, Butch Fletcher.
I'm a level with you here, Jeremy. And Adam, I know you've been around the Kansas City scene. There are times in this industry where you kind of just get that feeling like, I don't know if I can keep going. You get to that point, has the wrestling industry passed me by? I was feeling that way in the early 2000s. And I'll tell you right now, and I've said this on countless interviews, and I'll probably wind up saying it at the Hall of Fame. Butch Fletcher has been a longtime friend of mine, pretty much the majority of my career. But Butch Fletcher back in 2004 relit the fire for my love of professional wrestling. Butch Fletcher's a man that would go out there and to give you an idea, and for all those listening, I'm going to warn you, I'm going to commit a major fashion faux pas here. But any man who can get away with wearing an outfit that looks like it came from Dumb and Dumber, and yes, Black Glove Butch Fletcher did wear a powder blue tuxedo jacket with the tuxedo shirt with the frills and the whole nine and the aviator shades and that black glove that you knew he was known for. Butch Fletcher knew what it took to get his point across in the ring. He did it as an accomplished manager. He did it as a referee standing up for what was right inside the ring. As the promoter of Mid-America Extreme Pro Wrestling, he was one of the first to really have that open door policy. He was open to, if you want to wrestle MMWA, you want to wrestle Gateway, you want to wrestle RCW, you want to wrestle MPW, come on in. We'll have something here for you, something to do. And like I said, Butch Fletcher is one of those guys that doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. And interesting side note, we're going to talk a little more about this as we go. He was one of the first documented managers of a man by the name of Angus King. Now, a lot of the viewers of the Wrestle Talk podcast, Around the Ropes, Roundabout Sports, all the programs we've been on talking about the Hall of Fame, who's Angus King? Most people know him as WWE Hall of Famer Kane or Mayor Jacobs, the mayor of Knoxville, Tennessee. Butch Fletcher is one of the first documented managers of him, I believe back in 97, if I'm not mistaken. Might have even been 96. That when he was first making his debut, he was one of the first managers for him. And again, when it comes down to it, to me, it's a no-brainer. Butch Fletcher deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. It's well overdue. And to me, I feel it's one of those where Butch Fletcher, if anybody could take notes from what it takes to be a true professional in the industry, Butch Fletcher is that guy. And I'll tell you, his reach is everywhere. You can talk about it at CHWA, you can talk about it at Broadway, you can talk about it at PWE, you can talk about it at SICW. There are so many different promotions who, when you hear the name Butch Fletcher, it's spoken with reverence. And on July 19th, he might not be as spry as he once was, but like the country song says, I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. And I'm going to tell you right now, at the Hall of Fame, Jeremy, you and Butch may have to have a little bit of a rumble there to get that microphone out of his hands, because Butch Fletcher is definitely going to have something to say at the Hall of Fame.
All right. Well, next
and Adam, real quick before he goes up, I got to ask you, if it happens, who do you Who do you side with? Your broadcast colleague or the Hall of Famer?
What do you mean? Say that again. What do you mean
Who
by
do you
that?
side with if it comes a brawl for the microphone? The Maestro or Black Glove?
Oh yeah, nah. He probably still got some a little stuff in his tank
No,
there,
I was gonna
Jeremy.
say
I don't like
Black
your
Glove.
chances, brother.
I don't like my chances. I don't know what you're talking about. Shoot. I also wouldn't like my chances against this next person, that being Luke the Beast.
It's not unusual. Oh, wait. Sorry. I was going back into my karaoke days. The Beast, without question, is one of the toughest guys I've ever had the opportunity to be in the ring with. There's not a weapon he hasn't encountered in a ring. Tables, ladders, chairs, doors, Christmas ornaments, light tubes, barbed wire, thumbtacks, fire, you name it. The Beast has been in a match with it at some point in his career. The man, his rivalries with the wrestlers like Billy Bob and Chief Atakula Kula, Harsh, Izzy Blackwell, among others. I mean, he had a who's who during his career. And one thing I will say is this, and it's kind of a two-part thing here. The Beast inside the ring is like Butch Fletcher. Inside the ring, all bets are off. But if you were a friend of the Beast, you were his friend for life. True story. Two true stories here real quick. I know that the fans want to hear stories. They don't want to hear us talk. Back in 97, I was wrestling on an event, and I had a wrestler who took some liberties with me. Came real close to breaking my leg. And I come back in the locker room. I can't hardly walk around. Beast is like, hold that thought. Goes back into his travel bag, manages to get some Tylenol, manages to get a wrap, got something, I think I call it now Tiger Balm, wrapped up my knee, and again, by about the time of the main event, the Battle Royale was ready to go, and I'm sitting there, I'm basically trying to struggle to get through, and when the time was there, the Beast stood up for me. And he taught that guy a lesson to not take advantage of people. And ironically, one of the last times that guy ever stepped in the squared circle. The Beast has always been a very, very straightforward guy. Love him to death. SICW 2 years ago, he had just gotten done with the war with Chief Atakula Kula. And I was waiting around because I was going to talk to Dr. Drew, of all people. And all of a sudden, I'm like, whose locker room is that? Oh, that's where the Beast is. And I was walking by, and that door just happened to open. And to quote Forrest Gump, it was like peas and carrots. We hadn't been in the same building in probably 10 years. And he came up and gave me the world's biggest hug, and we sat, and we had a good meal together. We had some laughs. And like I said, when it comes down to it, the Beast has put his body on the line. And when it comes down to it, and I know, Jeremy, you've seen it. Adam, you may have seen it. His last match in St. Louis, he wrestled a gentleman by the name of Iorio. And let's just say by the time the match was over, Iorio was nothing more than a puddle in the middle of the ring. Doesn't matter how many years of experience, how much older he's gotten, the Beast can still pack a punch. And when it comes down to it, to see the Beast go into the Hall of Fame, definitely an individual to go in. And I'm going to tell you right now, he's being inducted by Mr. GQ. So again, there's another person that's doesn't mince words too much. So to see what's going to happen when the Beast goes into the Hall of Fame, again, you need to get your tickets because it's going to be one of those for the memory books.
The Pete Parisi Award winner this year, Tom Simon.
Well, first off, Jeremy, let's go back and look at the Pete Parisi Award. Pete Parisi was the man who basically kept St. Louis wrestling on television. You had a lot of times in the 80s, you had the NWA, you had the WWF, but you didn't really have a lot of the matches that you would see locally. Pete Parisi would make it a point to go, and a lot of times it was MMWA or SICW. He would go to events, he would tape the entire show, he would go home, he would conduct interviews on his own time at different locations, He would do all the editing. He would do everything to put the tape together. Then he would in turn drive it to the local television stations, the local cable access locations, and drop off new tapes every week. So let fans see exactly what professional wrestling on the independent scene was at the time. And to see somebody with the Pete Parisi Award, that's an award for somebody who's given to the industry, but given in a way that's not necessarily being in the ring and competing. And Tom Simon, I mean, the man's done it all. Again, he's been an announcer, a broadcaster, a referee, a timekeeper, a booker. He's an accomplished musician. He actually has sang the national anthem for both the U.S. and Canada at both the Tragos Fest and the Cauliflower Alley Club reunions. He's also an Army veteran. He's done a lot of things in the industry. Matter of fact, too, interesting note, he is one of the individuals who led the only documented referee strike in the history of professional wrestling in Missouri. He actually himself, and I believe it was Bama Bodine, and I can't for the life of me remember who the third official was, but they went on strike outside of a venue and actually caused an event to be canceled by the Missouri State Athletic Commission because they didn't have an official to compete. And Jeremy, you know, I know Adam, you've been to events. If you're in a state that is run by an athletic commission and you don't have athletic commission officials, they don't let you put on the event. And thanks to Tom Simon, that happened. And again, when it comes down to it, Tom Simon, I mean, again, a man's got 50 years in pro sports going all the way back to roller derby in the late 70s here in St. Louis. He's known for the gift of gab, and as the Maestro will tell you, the longest speech in Hall of Fame history is in jeopardy at the 2026 Hall of Fame because I think Tom Simon will eclipse the current record holder. I don't know who that guy is. I wonder if he's still going now. So, but as I said,
we
Tom
got
Simon
you off the mic, so at least that counted for something when it came to the longest speech.
Yeah, but when it comes down to it, though, Tom Simon, known him for years, very, very close to my family. Matter of fact, his family lives 10 minutes down the road from me. And I know for a fact we're looking forward to having Tom in the Hall of Fame, a man who definitely deserves the opportunity to be inducted. And I mean, again, when you look at it, he's refereed SICW, he refereed MMWA, he's refereed for St. Louis Anarchy. I mean, he's wrestled for countless promotions. CCW is another, RCW, WLW. He's been at countless different promotions. And what he's given to this industry, to me, Tom Simon, Pete Parisi, natural fit.
So we get the winners. So those were the inductees that will be there. The ones that are still with us.
There are still a couple more that we haven't talked about. And again, most of them that we still have to talk about. Like I said, we've got Montana, we've got the Beast, we've got Tom Simon.
Well, what I'm saying is, I wanted to get to the posthumous.
Okay, I get where you're going, Maestro.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I wanted to discuss the ones because now it's kind of a thing where you always want the fans to leave wanting more, and you're going to hear more about them at the Hall of Fame ceremony on July 19th. But the first posthumous inductee we're going to talk about is Every Lady's Fantasy, Marcus Mansfield.
Marcus Mansfield. Malachi Manson, for those that are familiar. And again, to give you an idea, I think there's not too many people who know that name, but it's somebody that you definitely need to. Inside the ring, he was a founding member, and Maestro, you're going to be familiar with this. He was a founding member of PYT, and I'm not talking the PYT back in the day of Coco Beware and Norvell Austin. I'm talking about the PYT that has been a staple in the St. Louis wrestling industry for many years. Inside the ring, Marcus Mansfield was the epitome of that heel that he was a good-looking guy. He knew what was up. He just had that smug look like, I'm better than you, and you know it. But outside the ring, Marcus Mansfield was a completely different guy. He was a very God-fearing man. He was one of those where he'd tell you what you did right, what you did wrong. And then 15 minutes later, he'd be like, I got a seat in my car. Who wants to go to KC? I got a seat in my car. Who wants to go to Hannibal? I got a seat in my car. Who wants to go to Mount Vernon? I got a seat in my car. Who wants to go Cape? And, I mean, above all else, I mean, Marcus Mansfield was a man who did a lot. I mean, how many people can say they founded 3 successful promotions? That's Marcus Mansfield. CSWA. He got the Central States okay from the late Bob Geigel. That's an accomplishment itself. Midwest Powerhouse Wrestling. And most recently, ACW. And like I said, when it comes to Marcus Mansfield, again, his family's still very involved in the wrestling community. His son is training to become a pro wrestler. Matter of fact, if you go back and you look at a certain promotion, which you got to figure out where you're going to find it because it's not on Peacock as much anymore, and they're not all on the Netflix just yet. But if you go back and you listen to the Hall of Fame induction of Kane, and he talks about a gentleman who basically saved his bacon, so to speak, when his car broke down before Bad Blood. The man who saved him, Marcus Mansfield.
Wow.
And that's one of those where when you develop a bond, even in the very early days of pro wrestling, many a time that bond is a bond that sticks with you for your career. And to be acknowledged on the grandest stage of them all, I mean, that gives you a certain idea of how much Marcus Mansfield meant to the industry. And, I mean, again, he's one of those that went far too soon. He had cancer, literally traveled the country, went to the Mayo Clinic for treatment, and, again, unfortunately passed away, again, way too early. And to see somebody like Marcus Mansfield go in the Hall of Fame, the accomplishments speak for itself. And, again, to give you an idea, he's going to be accepting and inducting him is going to be his late wife, Carla. And I'm going to tell you right now, Carla has been everywhere with Marcus. That's a given. I mean, you name it. She was one of those that would be in the car traveling with her husband every week. She'd be with the boys traveling from town to town. And I'm going to tell you, you want to learn about old school wrestling history, be at the Hall of Fame on July 19th, and you're going to hear some stories, not just from the boys, but from those that were behind the wrestlers that are in the Hall of Fame.
You talk about old school. Well, may not get much more old school with this class than this gentleman, Johnny Ramirez.
Johnny Ramirez, a man who, I'm going to tell you, between myself, Big Time Jim Harris, and Herb Simmons, I think we have found about as much remaining information on Johnny Ramirez as you possibly can. His in-ring accolades should speak for themselves. He was very involved in the wrestling industry before you had large-scale TV. He wrestled the likes of Skandor Akbar before he was Skandor Akbar. He wrestled the likes of Bob Geigel. He wrestled the likes of Pat O'Connor, of Angelo Poffo, of Joe Blanchard, of The Crusher, Big Bill Miller, among others. And when his in-ring career is done, what did he do? He went from being in the ring as a wrestler to being in the ring in the stripes. And he had a very accomplished refereeing career as well, and was an accomplished businessman as well. He was well known on the Metro East side of the river. He was involved in a couple different businesses. He owned his own gas station that was, from what I've done the research of, very successful. And interesting note, if you make it to the Hall of Fame, true statement, Johnny Ramirez's, and this is going to sound weird, Johnny Ramirez's last pair of boots will be in attendance because another Hall of Famer has them. That Hall of Famer, Sadie Blaze.
Okay. You know, that is an interesting little tidbit right there. Somehow I was expecting you or Herb to have them, but it doesn't. You know what? It makes sense, though. So that brings us to two that I know are very close to you and close to a lot of people that we know. And Adam, I'm sure you've heard of these gentlemen as well. But the first one we're going to talk about is the valedictorian Keon option.
All right, guys, I'm gonna level with you. This is one that I'm always on the verge of tears because Keon option was without question one of the most genuine, down to earth guys for me. I mean, I had an opportunity. He was in the ring only 6 years. And again, Johnny Ramirez and Keon Option are both going in under the President's Award. These are individuals who may or may not fit under a particular class, but the president of the board of directors feels that this individual deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Keon Option spent 6.5 years in the wrestling industry. His accomplishments as far as promotions he had wrestled for were a who's who. Former Dynamo Pro Tag Team Champion, SICW, WLW, High Risk Wrestling, New Breed Wrestling, among others. If you go around and there's a term just by some of the old school guys, Keon Option was a mechanic. Keon Option could go in there and wrestle anybody and make stands on the edges.
Oh, you're breaking up, Luke. Oh, bear with us, folks.
I'll tell you what, he has me ready to run to St. Louis to be at.
That's what I'm saying, man.
Yeah, so the idea of the greatest match I've ever seen in my career took place with Keon Option. The idea of where you have Keon Option and the neon icon Justin Year taking on High Level Enterprise at the Ready Room. I mean, these guys were like a fine-tuned Swiss watch. True idea here. Jeremy had the opportunity to see Justin Year in the ring. Justin Year was a high flyer to the nth degree. He went from the outside spring up to the top rope, was going to come. I think it was like forearm or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. He saw that Jet Gamble was going to get out of the way. We were at a place called the Ready Room. He grabbed the girder on the roof of the venue. He manages to get one swing back. Gamble tags in his partner, John Webb. John Webb springboards to the top rope, comes over. It looks like Edge and Jeff Hardy with no ladder. And these four men, I mean, they literally tore the house down. And as much as he did inside the ring, Keon Option was the epitome of a great person outside the ring. He was former president of his Christian fraternity at the national level. He was a former president of his college's chapter of the NAACP. He had a master's degree, bachelor's degree in psychology, master's degree in public administration. The man ran for the Missouri House of Representatives. He was an Army National Guard officer candidate. And as Jeremy knows, he passed away 2 weeks after turning 30. And there was no warning. He basically, from my understanding, was he tried to get out a warning and had basically cardiac arrest and passed away. And to quote somebody that we all know, Remy George, who's very well known in the MMWA, he made a comment that if his sons could do even a fraction of what Keon Option did in his lifetime and his time on this planet, he would consider himself to be a very proud man. And to give you an idea, and Jeremy knows this full well too, Keon is going to be inducted by myself and a man by the name of Victor Von Stein. Now, Victor Von Stein and I don't necessarily have the best of track records.
No, you really don't.
when it comes down to it, we've got that gentleman's agreement to where it's not about me, it's not about him, it's about the legacy of what Keon Option brought to the professional wrestling industry and what he brought to life in general. And again, this is one of those where if you look at it from the normal inductees, odds are Keon Option's not going to get there. But one of the big things that the board of directors looks at is the complete package. What did you bring to the table? What did you do for your community? What did you bring overall? Right. And it was those kinds of things that puts Keon Option in the Hall of Fame. And I'm going to tell you right now,
Luke lost Luke again. Adam, you know you got to come out to the Hall of Fame, right? I hope you know that.
It's this Saturday, right?
It's Sunday, July 19th, week before my wedding.
Oh, July. I was reading it. Okay. You know what? That might be feasible, brother.
Yes. So
I'm ready to now. Luke got me hyped about this event.
Oh, yeah. You back, Luke? Can't you hear us? We can hear you, don't worry, but we're making sure you're okay on your end. So Luke, hang on. Well, he's figuring out his situation. I want to say one thing before we have our last guest, or before we have our last inductee talked about. So for those that don't know, July 26th, I'll be getting married. And obviously the greatest day of my life. I'm super excited for it. As far as this show, I mean, obviously we're getting down to the last few weeks, the nitty-gritty of everything. So Adam and AB Austin Bradley are going to be taking the helm of Roundabout Sports for the next month or so while I am away, because yes, wedding planning gets stressful, gets crazy, and there's still a lot of stuff we got to do, so I got to really focus time on that. But Adam and I have been friends for many years, and he's just an absolute blast to host this show with, so I know he and Austin are going to do an amazing job, and I look forward to it. So
me too. I look forward because I enjoy. Austin is so in depth, especially when it comes to college sports, and he's very entertaining too as he's talking about it. Because it's kind of the same thing with Luke. The level of passion that these guys have whenever they're talking about the thing that they love, it literally can make you run through a wall. And Austin has that too, I believe.
He does. We're gonna bring Luke on one more time, try to see if we can get him. Luke, you there?
You know what? You talk about things being difficult. It's difficult to keep a connection here in the office. It's a bad thing. But as you talk about it before, before I got disconnected, the wonders of technology, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be difficult for myself and Big Vic both to keep from the tears flowing at the Hall of Fame inducting Keon Option, because he was just that great of a man. And like I said, we have another posthumous inductee too, that being Big Bad Ben.
Yep, the last
Big
last
Bad.
one we're talking about.
Yep, Big Bad Ben was a very polarizing individual. You hear a lot of people say either they liked him or they didn't like him. There wasn't any shade of gray with Ben. Ben basically told you how it was. He was one of the first to step up and say, I didn't like how the scene was, so he made things happen his way. And to give you an idea, without Big Bad Ben, you don't have Delirious, you don't have Daisy Hayes, you don't have Mischief, you don't have Matt Seidel, you don't have Dingo, you don't have wrestlers like Billy McNeil, you don't have wrestlers like the Bum Rush Brothers, you don't have wrestlers like Gary J, the European Union, who moved on to become the Submission Squad and the Commission. There were so many wrestlers that have to say that Big Bad Ben was the reason behind either their career taking off, or as current Dynamo Pro Heavyweight Champion Jackal talks about, to give their career that shot in the arm that they need. And again, I had my chance. I found out why for a better part of 20 years Big Bad Ben didn't get along with me. And it was about 6 months before he unfortunately passed away. And basically it came down to he was holding an issue against me that was my older brothers doing when they first broke into the wrestling industry together. And basically I just sat down and said, hey, you can't hold something against me that somebody in my family did. I don't agree with what you think, but that's what it is. And I mean, again, we weren't the best of friends, but we definitely had made our peace. And to see Big Bad Ben going into the Hall of Fame, definitely one of those that needs to go in. And like we said, from top to bottom, the Hall of Fame, the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, Sunday, July 19th, Andres Banquet Center, 4254 Telegraph Road in St. Louis, 63129 is the zip code. That's the place you need to be. You need to get out. You need to see what the history of St. Louis pro wrestling is going to be. You get the opportunity to get a good meal. You get to learn about the artifacts. You get to hear the great stories. As Karp can tell you from last year, Jeremy, if I'm correct here, maybe if I'm wrong, you can correct me. Wasn't it 9 promotions out of the 13 in St. Louis that had some representation at the Hall of Fame? And there were just an outrageous amount of promotions that were there. And you didn't hear the, oh, well, I'm better than you. And no, the egos, the promotional stuff, all that stuff was checked at the door. And the opportunity to come out and, again, a good meal, history, stories, getting to meet the wrestlers outside of a night of being in the ring and getting beaten up for the check. It's going to be a great time. Again, if you want to buy tickets, $30 in advance, $35 at the door. You can get them. ISTLWHOF.com. Again, ISTLWHOF.com. Tickets will be available there. You can also buy them at the door for $35. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, it's going to be a great opportunity. And if you want to catch the pregame and the postgame show and anything else coming from the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, make sure to tune in to Interstate 70 Sports Media, because as they've been since day one, they always look at the professional wrestling scene. They always look at all forms of sports. And to have the opportunity to see what the Hall of Fame is all about, it gives you an opportunity to recognize what pro wrestling means to the people of St. Louis, it means to the country, and it means to the world. And you're going to be able to follow that through the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame and all of our great media outlets, including the one, the only, Interstate 70 Sports Media. And gentlemen, as it always is, it's an honor and a privilege. Jeremy, I know you're going to be getting married soon enough. Congratulations on the upcoming nuptials. Adam, I hope it's going to be your opportunity. I know there are several who are going to be making the commute from the Kansas City area Hall of Fame. Maybe we can get you a seat and have you come down as well. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be a great weekend here. There's going to be a couple other special events. I can't say right now, but I can tell you as soon as they're made official, we'll make it a point to get them shared out on Interstate 70 social media. And I'm going to tell you right now, you talk about the WrestleMania experience, the Fan Fest, you talk about all those kinds of things. The Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame is going to bring it all home to you on Sunday, July 19th. Pre-show starts at 11:30, doors open at 12:30. The event starts at 1. It's all emceed by the Maestro, and you're going to have a great experience on Sunday, July 19th.
Thank you so much, Luke. I appreciate you being on, my friend, and I can't wait to see you soon, okay? You take care, my friend.
Have a good one.
Thank you very much, guys. And like I said, let's look forward to upcoming events right here on Interstate 70 Sports Media and Roundabout Sports.
Amen, brother. Luke Roberts, ladies and gentlemen, from the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. What an amazing night, amazing time.
Dude, I got to come out there.
Oh, you absolutely have to.
I have to. That's 3 weeks away. That's not too bad. That's just the short little 4-hour drive.
Yeah, you got this. We'll hang out and everything. Might even hang out on that Saturday. What the hell? Why not?
Yeah, that I'll make it a St. Louis weekend.
Dude, that would be amazing. Well, folks, we're going to wrap it up this week on Roundabout Sports. And as always, you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Pocket Cast, Amazon Music, and any other streaming platforms out there. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, X, Twitch, and the official Interstate 70 Sports Media YouTube channel. And of course, want to thank our sponsors, Harsh Construction LLC and Crispy Clean Lawn Care Brush and Junk Removal. With all that, folks, as always, the NAMI helpline is at the bottom of our screen at the end of every show. For that, you dial 1-800-950-NAMI. 1-800-950-NAMI. The National Alliance on Mental Illness is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to help people who struggle with mental health issues, as well as their families in need as well. And of course, we always put the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at the bottom of our screen. For that, you dial 988. The line is open 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. Understand you're never alone in this world. There was always somebody out there who loves you, who cares about you, who wants nothing but the best for you. We all go through trials and tribulations and struggles throughout life, and it can get you feeling down and despondent and depressed, but understand that your feelings are valid and you matter, and you're never alone in this world. There is always somebody out there, and you're just a phone call, a text message, an appointment away from what could be that life-saving moment for you. And you could be the listening ears and watchful eyes for somebody else in need as well. As always, I want to thank Adam Frecks, my dear friend and co-host, for joining me this evening. I want to thank Luke Roberts for joining us. Be sure to tune in next week when Austin Bradley and Adam Frecks will be taking the helm as I go MIA for a few weeks, but for very good reason, of course. So
we're excited for you, brother. We're excited for you.
I appreciate it, man. I'm excited to be able to tune in and have a show on in the background while we're getting these final planning things figured out. But until then, folks, I'm the Maestro Jeremy Karp. He's Adam Frecks. And remember, life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in. Make your lives worth reading. Good night, everybody. And we'll see you later.